being said here. Okay, cool. Right, hey guys, welcome to part 4. In part 3, we were going over the Extract tool. And if you remember, basically, if you make a mask by holding Control and press Extract, you get an extraction wherever whatever you have masked off. Let me just change here to a matte cap gray. Okay, cool. So I can do an extract. All right, but before we do that, let's see if we can give this guy a different set of eyes real fast. Okay, so if I click Append, I can append a spear. Okay. Now I can go to the layer of the spear, and I can use my Move tool to basically move this in place. You can grab these corners here and move this. Let's see here. This will be a lot more, like I guess you can say like believable. Obviously, it was flat because I kind of just sculpted it in or whatever. But now I can go ahead and add that in there. I'm just trying to see if I guess that looks good. I mean, we're just doing a demo, but now to duplicate to the other side, there's something you can use called Subtool Master. So if you go to Z plugin menu, you'll see there's a Subtool Master. And Subtool basically has to do with all these subtools. It allows you to do multiple things to subtools at once, things of that nature. So what I usually do is I'll click Subtool Master, and then here I'll get another menu. We're gonna go over this soon. We didn't go over this yet, but we will go over this soon in detail. I mean, I only really use a few things in here, but we'll go over some of them. So if I click Mirror, I can choose the mirror. If I choose just to merge into one subtool, it's all going to be on one subtool here. If I append, it'll make two subtools, so to make two different layers of eyeballs. I typically put them in the same layer. I could always split them later if I wanted to, but I'll merge into one subtool, and then I'll choose my axis, which is the x-axis, because I want it on this side. If I choose Y, you see it'll go up top. We don't want that, and Z will kind of put it on top of the other one. So we want to use the X, and we just click OK, and there we go. We now have two eyeballs here. Okay. And generally, now that we have our eyeballs in place, what I would do is extract is good for, like extracting eyelids. I might keep the eyelids we have. I don't know, but you basically would just kind of do one of these things. Make sure symmetry is on by press X, hold Control, draw on it like that. Oops. Hold Control, draw, and let's see here. I'll hold Control and press. I'm gonna hold Control and press Alt, and then I can kind of take away as well. That's weird. My draw size not working. Okay. Then when you're done, you can click Extract. See, click Extract. You get another layer of eyelids here. So the thickness of it is right here if I want it really thick. This is a preview again, so if I click extract, if I move this around, I'm going to lose it because I didn't accept the changes. So there you go. I can click there. I usually make it a little bigger than I need it, so I can smooth it out and make it a little small. So I'm going to click extract on this one. I'm going to hit accept. I'm going to go to my previous layer because what's going to happen is there's still going to be a mask on there. So I'm going to hold control and drag on the screen right here to get rid of the mask and come out of solo mode. Then I'm going to go to the eyelids here and I'm going to hold control and get rid of that mask. Okay. Then, you know, if you hold shift, you could smooth this out and, you know, get it the way you want. Use the move tool and basically, you know, move this in place to where it makes sense. What I usually do is I usually pinch. I'll usually pinch the what do you call it, like the sides or whatever. Okay, so I usually I'll grab pinch and I'll just kind of pinch the sides inwards a little bit. Gives it more of a, I'd say, like, you know, like a stylized feel. So and for some reason I can't make my brush bigger and smaller with my hotkey. I have no clue why. Oh, you know what? Maybe this is why. No. Okay. I'm not going to mess with it right now. All right. So, whoops. If you get a mistake like that, just hit Control N, and it'll basically, you know, fix itself. Control N. So there we go. So you've got new eyelids for this guy. I guess I'll just keep that like that. I just wanted to show you guys, you know, how that would essentially work. And then what we could do is we could do like a color pick. Remember, you can color pick this and drag it on there, and it'll make it that green. And then you could just make sure that you could do mRGB, and you can bake the material and the color at the same time into the object by clicking Fill Object. And there we go. It looks a little better. Let's see what he looked like before the eyes. So he's looking a lot better now. All right, so that's the extract. And the extract double-sided surfaces, corner, quads, the tris. I usually don't mess with these. Smooth is something you might want to mess with. Thickness is something you might want to mess with. But other than that, that's about it for me in there. Let's move on to geometry. Geometry we pretty much went over for the most part. Well, at least this part of it. And what I mean by that is when you press, first I'm going to press N to go to the subtool. So I can, okay, let's say like these eyes, for example. I'm going to solo out things here. If you click and then you zoom in, it'll zoom in on the object that you clicked on. You just have to tap one time. If you go like this, it's going to make a change. But if you just tap with your pen tablet, you can kind of circle in on that. So to really hit home on what's happening here is basically there's an algorithm, right? And the algorithm is, I believe it's 4x4x4 that it'll subdivide the model. Not 100% sure, but basically if I was to hit Control D I should get another level of subdivision here, which I did, yeah. So you can see now I have more subdivision, right? If I go down, see this here? Zoom in a little bit. Okay. Now, and if I go up, I get it basically kind of like multiplies it, depending on how much resolution you need in order to do whatever you're trying to do. So if we go to subdivision level 1, for example, right? And we hover over this subtool, we can see that it is currently, what do you call it? 16384 polywise, right? And then if we go over it again, when we go up, now it's 65024 polywise. So it went from 16,000 to 65. All right, so that's what this does. So Control D to add resolution. Subdivision is at level 3, and then Shift D to go down resolution. And remember, you make big changes smaller. When you're smaller, you make big changes, and then when you go up, those changes will transfer very nicely. So you see that move change I just did. Now, if I was to go and make a change, let's say up here, we're not going to get such a smooth change. I mean, right now it looks okay because we have a lot of resolution, but just make really huge changes at your lower levels because all that information will transfer up to your higher levels. Okay. All right. Now, subdivision cage, I don't touch typically. I'm not even 100% sure what that one is for. But let me see if I can get a quick example. If I hold Control and hover over it. When dividing the mesh with smoothing active, the shape and placement of polygons in lower levels change with the cage button pressed. ZBrush recalculates the placement of the base vertices. Okay, so cage would just kind of, it's like another way to kind of recalculate things when you do subdivision. I never use this. I've been using ZBrush for years. I never use this, to be honest. Restore from highest subdivision level. Okay. So I think on this one, restore from higher subdivision level. Let's see what happens. When the restore button is pressed, ZBrush will ignore all changes established in lower sublevel and restore the model from the highest sublevel. Okay. So basically, I believe, let's see, example of use: if any model with subdivisions was loaded, then drop to a lower subdivision level to make adjustments. For example, smoothing the model but realize the changes were not ideal. The restore button will ignore the most recent change made to the lower level and reset the low sublevel to its original state. So if you mess up in the low level, this button will kind of restore it. I never use that, to be honest, though. Now, delete lower and delete higher. If you have more subdivision levels than you need, I can go down. Let's say I don't need level 3. I can go down to level 2 and just click delete. Oops. And click delete higher, for example. And now I got rid of 3. I have 1 and 2. And if I just want to keep, let's just say I want to keep 2, this level. So I can delete lower. And now I only have this level of subdivision. So that's what that does, okay? Freeze subdivision levels. There's going to be certain times when you use certain brushes or actions in ZBrush where it's going to ask if you want to freeze the subdivision levels. And you typically have to choose yes, and sometimes automatically, and it'll store where the levels are. So freeze subdivision levels will automatically store all subdivision levels and drop the model to the lowest subdivision level. You will now be able to safely make changes to the topology of the lowest level. Okay, so it's kind of like a fail-safe, and it'll drop you to your low level, and then you can make change. And it has an example here. If you can use Dynamesh or the mesh insert buttons when you are done editing the base mesh. Click Freeze Subdivision level to turn it off. ZBrush will now return to the highest level and reproject the details from the topology. So this button, will come in handy with Dynamesh and things of that nature. Reconstruct Subdivision level is something that I've used a few times. If you click Reconstruct, what's going to happen typically is it'll reconstruct the subdivision level down to the original state. If you're too high up, for example, and you need to get lower and you don't have any sublevels, you can do Reconstruct Subdivision. You can see right now it doesn't seem to be working. I think it's because I was already at the lowest state. So let's just go, let me try something. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's go to level 3 and click Delete Lower and Reconstruct. There we go. You see I'm reconstructing it? ZBrush already knows how to calculate backwards and get me back to my lower subdivision levels. So, I can reconstruct back to the original state, delete higher. Convert BPR to Geo. Yeah, I don't remember what that is. Let's see. The Convert BPR to Geo button will convert the BPR rendering result of any micro mesh and fiber mesh. Oh, okay. Into geometry. So what this has to do with is basically if you were using fiber mesh, which is like a hair thing, for example, and you did a BPR render, you can click Convert BPR to Geo, and it'll make what you rendered out, like the hair that you rendered out, it'll make it actual geometry so that you can manipulate it, and you can bring it in other 3D programs, because if you don't, you won't be able to bring it in other 3D programs otherwise. For example, that's what that does. Divide we went over. When I control D, I'm dividing the model. And if I hit Shift D, I'm going down to the lower level of the model. If I just press D, I can go up one at a time. So let's say I have, 4. I'm going to press Shift D, it goes to 3, Shift D goes to 2, Shift D goes to 1. If I press D, 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 it goes all the way up. So that's how you can kind of, work around doing that. You're going to see there's a smooth option, and smooth option is very handy, something that I use. To show smooth in practice, we need to work on a different mesh. Okay, so let's do this. Let's jump out of here, and we're just going to make like an example here so you can understand how this is working. I'm going to append. Gee, what should I append? Cone maybe? I don't know. I don't think the cone's going to do it for me to bring. Sorry, I'm not even sure what I could append here. All right, let's just try to append a cube at first. And I'm going to look at this cube. And I'm going to go to, let's see here. I think I can go to initialize. There's a lot of options here. Let me get rid of this. I don't know why this is still in here. Let's just get rid of this for a second. Okay, this looks a little less crazy. So initialize, and I've kind of gone over initialize. Let's see. So if we do a cube, we get the cube like this. So if we hit subdivide on that cube, all right. So this is a good example. Okay, you see, for example, how like when I just hit Control D, I kind of lost the shape. If I go back to Shift D, I have the shape like this, and if I hit Control D, oh, you know what? It's not going to let me do it now. It basically, there's a smooth feature. I'm going to go back to the cube again. Can I reconstruct? Reconstruct. Oops. Let's do delete higher. Reconstruct. So right now I'm back to a cube, right? Now you can see when I go to D, I kind of lose that shape of the cube. But let's say I want to keep this shape of the cube. Okay. So the way that I would have to do that is if I take off the smoothing, for example, and then I subdivide. I divide 1, 2. Oops. I don't know why that's not working. Hold on a second. Control D. Hold on. Maybe I masked this. Hold on. Did I mask? Yeah, I masked this. That's why it wasn't subdividing. Sorry. But yeah, if I take off the smooth, I go 1, 2, and I divide this model, you could see it retains the shape. Okay. Now, if I put the smooth back on and I start dividing, it's going to start losing the shape again. So this is good for like when you want hard surface stuff. Okay, that's pretty much like, you know, a scenario you would use that in. So you can control, you know, do you want the object to be smooth when it subdivides, or you want it to be hard? Or you want it to keep its shape? That's what the smooth button does. Smooth UV. Never use this one. The smooth UV button, if pressed, determines that UV coordinates are smooth when the next divide or edge loop action is performed. So if you have UVs, which we haven't learned yet, on your model, if your model contains UVs and you go up at subdivision level, you can do smooth UV, and you know, in case your UVs are getting messed up for any reason. And then we have RE. We'll reapply smooth UVs to the selected subtool. Okay. If REUV is pressed, ZBrush will reapply the original UVs before they were smooth. So if your UVs got messed up that you had on your model, you can press this button and ZBrush will, you know, attempt to fix it basically. Let me just take this off for a second. We're going to delete higher, and now we're going to look at dynamic subdivision. So if I click dynamic on, you see what happened just there? I have the smooth turned back on. So dynamic subdivision basically gives you, it's kind of like subdividing, but it's a dynamic thing. So it means it's not, it's editable. It's not destructive, you know. So I could preview my, you know, how would this square look if I subdivide it? I could see it would look like a circle. And it won't work until you apply it to the mesh. Like it won't be part of it until you apply it to the mesh. So you could work on this and, oops. Yeah, I don't know why this thing is acting. Oh, let's see, maybe this might fix it. But yeah, you can kind of apologize. ZBrush is acting like ZBrush today. You can see I kind of like distorted this, and if I go back to dynamic, so you can make changes and, you know, see those changes, and then you can add a bevel too, and I think that's like really where it shines. If you want to bevel like the edges of this, you see that how I can bevel it? That gives it like a line, that gives it like a bevel so the light hits it. So if you render out this, it won't look flat, like the light's hitting that surface, you know. Like if I render this out, can't really see too much, but you know, that's what that basically does. Chamfer is another one. When you chamfer edges, and this is another one, coverage. Let me go back to chamfer. When the chamfer button is pressed, ZBrush will apply a chamfer, a more rounded bevel. So it's actually rounding it out when you actually put a chamfer on it. So if I take the chamfer off, you can see how it kind of changed a little bit. So if you want a rounded edge, That's one way to do it. That's a quick way to do it. QGrid coverage. The coverage slider we kind of already did, but you could see what it does. And you could see you could make a pretty cool shape, like just messing around, you know. That's what the coverage does, and it's non-destructive. So now I go back to a square into this. So you can really manipulate your geometry with dynamic subdivision turned on. Flat subdivision levels. The flat subdivide slider will dynamically subdivide the mesh, but not apply any smoothing to the mesh. Right, so this would be the same as turning off smooth next to divide when applying normal subdivisions. So it's saying this button here is equivalent to taking this off and dividing. So what this does is it's keeping those edges hard. So you can just go like a 3, you know, you could see what it's doing. See that? See how it got all hard now? Because it's not smoothing it. But if you want smooth the subdivision, you can use this to get the smooth subdivision. Like if I take this down, you know, if I just want smooth subdivision, there you go. If I want hard subdivision, there you go. Okay. And honestly, guys, this is awesome. Like when you're doing mechs or anything that's kind of, I don't know, like a prop work, like if you're doing a crate or also, I don't know, you know what I mean, all sorts of stuff. Basically anything that's like a hard surface object, this is good to use for this stuff. All right, edge loop. Now, I guess I have to really explain what an edge loop is first, to kind of hit home about these things. Let me just turn dynamic off for now. What an edge loop is like, let's say right now, this is only geometry that I have, but if I add an edge loop in here, it'll add more geometry. It'll add like a line around this whole thing. It'll add a loop around it. That's what an edge loop is. We typically use edge loop when we want to keep a surface hard. You know, you could slide a loop down here, so when you divide, it keeps that, or you can do that smooth option I showed you. But what if you didn't want to have every edge hard, right? What if I wanted the top to be smooth, but the bottom to be hard? An edge loop allows you to control that. But in other words, too, edge loop allows you to add more geometry. So there's like 2 different things you can do with edge loop. So edge loop mask border. There's no mask, but let me see if I highlight over it. When the edge loop mask border button is pressed, ZBrush will slice the mask portion of the surface and create a new poly group. So if I just like make a mask like this, and then I do edge loop mask border, what it's doing is it's adding more geometry. Okay. Edge loop mask border. Okay. All right. We'll do here. Edge loop mask border. So now I have 4 polys on all sides, right? And then right here we have an edge loop. So if I do something like this, I hit edge loop. Oops. This function requires the mesh to be partially hidden. Okay, yeah. So let me show you how to hide something. Control Shift. You get a selection. If you hold Control and Shift and drag, you can get a selection of stuff. So Control Shift drag. Okay. You just go back to it again. Control Shift drag. It just selected that area. And if I clicked on the canvas, it's going to invert that when I'm holding Control Shift. And if I press Control Shift, it'll all come back. So Control Shift. If I Control Shift drag all the way to here, it's grabbing all this. The reason, let me show you this to really hit this home. If I only grab half of this, like of these purple boxes here, and I don't grab all the way down to here, it's not going to select it, right? I have to literally grab underneath that line, the edge there. Now it'll select both of them. Now if I click edge loop, it's going to add an edge loop. See that? I just added another loop. And then if I hold shift and control and click on my canvas, I bring everything back. If I just, see, if I hold control and shift and I try to drag and click this, nothing's going to happen. Because if I'm only grabbing this one little piece, but if I hold control and shift and I grab this, then I can grab the whole thing. See that? If you hold control shift and alt, you get an opposite, so you can delete it out. It'll invert what you're doing, basically. So control shift alt, right? It's only showing that, the boxes. Control shift alt. So it kind of does like the opposite of what you're doing. You can click too on different stuff to hide it or show it. So I could control shift alt to bring back. You could do a control shift alt to bring back. So red means take away or invert, kind of. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. All right, so that's what the edge loop does. Crisper extrude. Crisper extrude. The crisper extrude button affects the way the extrude edge loop button divides the edge polygons. When pressed, polygons are divided nearer the outer of the rim of the visible mesh. When the mesh is divided with smoothing active, this rim provides a crisp corner transition. So this kind of gives you control over the edge loop. So let's just hit, let's turn on crisp and see what it does. Control shift, and let's select up to here. Okay. Then we hit edge loop. So what it does is it gives you a crisper edge loop. It puts it closer to the edge, to really, really put it at the edge. Because when I did an edge loop before, remember, it put it like right here instead. Like our old edge loop was right here, but our new one is super thin. Our new one's super thin. Edge loops to kind of, determine, like I said, the way things divide. Like if I divide this now, you're probably not going to see much change, but oops, because it's not on the edge, like it's not on the outer edge, so you're not going to see the change right now. But if I add an edge loop here, okay, you see, I added the edge loop right there, so that shows. Okay, I'm gonna do Control Shift again. Oops, turn back on the polyframe. It's good to work in polyframe to see your geometry, to see where the edges are. Or I think it's Shift F. Yeah, Shift F turns it on and off. Shift F. All right. That allows you to turn it on and off. So let me see if I subdivide now. See that? See what happened? When I subdivide now, I get a nice hard edge up top, and I get a soft edge at the bottom. So now this is kind of a way you can customize things. Super, super helpful. Okay. Displace amount, I don't use this. The displace amount slider determines by how much the visible groups are extruded. Okay, pushed out from the object's center when the extrude edge loop button is placed. I typically don't mess with the displace amount, but you could if you wanted to. We have a new thing too now in ZBrush, which is something called what is it called? I can't remember the name of it. Going blank. Basically, if you press Zmodeler, that's what it's called. I'm sorry. I'm not really going to touch this on this right now, but Zmodeler is a way that you can select these things here, right? To kind of manipulate it. You could see here I could actually add an edge just by dragging, and I could put the edge exactly where I want. All I did was in the brush menu I chose Zmodeler, and I hover over an edge, and I'm by default, if I'm just like dragging, I can drag to like a corner and create an edge. So that'll give me a nice hard surface there. And then this surface over here is going to be soft, you know, for example. Oops. And then we turn it on, you know, we can see that in practice. Okay. We're going to go through this. I didn't teach you guys this, and there's a lot of actions in here. And basically, you know, what ZBrush did, and it did a great job, is if you hold spacebar, you get this menu, right? And you know, depending on where you're clicking, like if I'm hovering rather over a poly, and I just go like this, I can push the geometry in and out using my mouse. It'll probably be easier. Let me see if it's easier doing that way. I can push it in and out though. See that? Might be easier like if you drag left and right on your tablet. I was using the mouse just for a second to kind of get a little more accurate, but there's a whole menu in here with all sorts of stuff, and depending if you're hovered over an edge, you get a different menu. If you're hover over a poly, you get a different menu, right? So by default, it's on that Q mesh setting, which allows you to pull out edges, which is basically like an extrude. I mean, there is an extrude here, so I mean, if you see the extrude, it's kind of similar. But we'll go over all that. But that's another way that you can manipulate your geometry, any of the geometry, like anything you want. I can manipulate the top. I can add edges here. I can do whatever I want. You know, you could do an inset. See that? That's an inset right there. Then I can go ahead and I can do a Q mesh, and I can grab this and pull this out or push this inwards. Okay. And then, you know, you can make a change like that. Oops. And then if you go Control D, you could see it kind of turns into a circle, because without edge support, a square becomes a circle. You know, generally in traditional 3D modeling, right? If you just have a square and you don't have any supporting edges, you're not going to keep this square here. It's going to turn into a circle when you subdivide. Okay? Because it doesn't have anything to stop it from doing that. And hopefully that makes sense, you know, as far as that goes. All right, so let's move along here. I'll just choose a different brush for now. Let's see, we could put this back up in case we need it. Now this inserts edges around polygroups. And a polygroup is that color there. For example, if I hold Control Shift and I make a selection, I probably should have made this a little straighter so it's easy to make selection. If I hold Control Shift, and then let's say I'm still holding Control Shift, by the way, I do Select Lasso. I'm going to choose Select Lasso because I can just kind of go like this, you know, make a lasso selection around this. All right. So I'm going to hold Control Shift to get rid of that. I'm going to hold Control Shift to get rid of that. All right, so I'm left with this. And let's just get rid of this too. Why not? Oops. Control Shift. So I hit Control Shift to get rid of that as well. All right, so all I have is this. So this is a polygroup. And a polygroup is how we can make easy selections of our geometry. When things get crazy, especially like fingers on a character, for example, you want to polygroup each finger because it's going to be super hard to select the fingers, once they're kind of like colliding or too close to each other, you're going to have a difficult time making a selection. So, for example, we have a polygroups menu, which we haven't gone over yet. But if I was to go to polygroups here and I click group visible, this will group any of the, this will make a polygroup of any of the geometry that's visible. So I'm going to click group visible, and you can see what happens is the color changes. And the color that it changes to is random. I can click this all day and I get any color I want. But when you group things, it allows you to select them. So if I Control Shift and I click, I can get rid of that whole group. If I Control Shift and Alt, yeah, I can do the same. So, and let's say, for example, I want to make this a different polygroup. I can just select it, group visible, bring it back. So that's how that works. That's what polygroups are. So what it's talking about here, when it says group loops, it means like if you have it can group it'll make a group out of the loop. Watch. Oops. That one has too much geometry. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to fix things up. Let me see if I do this one. That one it grouped. Actually, you know what? We have to do this with a mask. I think that's the issue. Yeah. So that one grouped it. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to make a polygroup out of the different edge loops that you have. Or insert edge loops around polygons, rather, sorry. It's trying to insert the edge loops around the polygons itself. Sorry, I have not used this in a while. Group loops. And you can keep clicking as many times as you want, and it'll keep making edge group loops all day. And it can get pretty crazy here. Alright, so that's what that is. You can control how many loops you want to get. Like if I don't want 4 loops and I just want 1, and hit group loops, what's going to happen is I'll just get one group. I'm going to get one poly group loop of the same color, basically. Oh, sorry. Hello. Spam calls. Anyway, so that's what I'll get one of the same color. If I want 2 different groups, then I got 2 groups there. I got the green and the purple. If I want 3, I got even more there. So that's what that kind of does. The group polish, I believe it makes it like hard, if I'm not mistaken. The group polish will control how much polish will be applied to the surface. So if we do this, and I don't know if we're going to be able to really see an example of that. Let's see. Let's turn the polish all the way up and loop one time. Hit group loops. I'm really not even seeing any change. I generally don't use that. So I mean, I could always look into that, and we'll put it in a future episode or something. allow group loop triangles. If you want triangle geometry in your mesh, then you would keep this button clicked. If not, if you want all squares, then you would unclick it. We could do something called panel loops. Panel loops, I should know what they do. Panel loops makes a loop. How do I explain it? Panel loops makes, like if you're cutting in edges into something, it takes the edge loops and it makes a panel out of it. Let me see if I can go back a little bit and if I do panel loops. So you can see like where those edge loops are. It adds more, it adds more geometry there. See that? It makes like a nice edge. So if I subdivide that, hold on. I don't know why I don't know if it's subdivided. No, it didn't. Dynamics not on. We could do a dynamic subdivision. Let's see. Let me just click that, move that over. But you get like some nice, you basically get some nice edges going on, you know, with this. I hit divide. I don't know if anything's happened. Hold on a second. Let me try something. If I go Shift D, nothing happens. Reconstruct subdivision. Do I have a mask on? I might have a mask on. Sorry, it could just be like an error or something too. It's subdividing now. It's trying to. It tells me it's subdividing. Sometimes wonky things can happen as well, like in this program. So I'm take the dynamic off. It's letting me add geometry, so that's working. You can see it's getting thicker here. See that? Now I think, let me do delete higher. And I have smooth on. Let me just see something. Why are we getting crisp? If we take off crisp maybe, and then we do that. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that, but I wanted this to be smooth. I'm not sure why it's not. Well, oh, I see we're too high up. Hold on, let me see if I can get down. I can't even reconstruct. All right, along the way I basically kind of messed this mesh up. It's always good to save as you're working, in case you mess something up. Let me go back in history. Well, at least there's a history slider too. Okay, so this was kind of before this stuff got messed up, right? So this is when we added in the loops. Now if I hit divide, it's still maintaining the shape. I don't know why. I'm gonna have to look into it. I have no clue. Is it adding? I think it added the edge loop along these edges, like super small. Like I think there's like a double loop here. Like when we did a panel loop, I think it like panel looped everything. Maybe. So if I do a divide here, it looks good. Divide. See, this one looks good. Yeah, so it's alright. I mean, it's probably something that I did. I'll just delete higher for now. Go back into solo mode. Don't even sweat it. Alright, so let me just try something here. I'm going to make my drill size a little smaller. I want to select Control Shift. I want to select Poly. Oops. I actually just want to make a selection on this. If you're having a hard time making a selection, You can control drag and make a mask. If anything, it'll select that poly. It's kind of hard to see it though that it does that. Oh, Control Alt maybe. I can't win today. Okay, I think I know why. If I do Control Shift Alt and drag on that. Yeah, Control Shift Alt. Control Shift Alt and drag that red on there to get rid of what you don't want. So now I just have this selected. And then if I do a panel loop, let's see if it did it. Oh, what did it do? Did it get rid of it? No, it's in there. I think it has to be visible. Let's make a mask on it. Bring everything back and unmask that area. Oops. Okay, I have no clue what's going on today. But panel loops just basically let you make loops where there's poly group, where the panels are, where the edge loops are rather. So it kind of like doubles up. So let me just show you this in practice though. You could see what it does here, but if I could change things. I could make it thicker or smaller. We'll go back. Let's just bump the thickness all the way up. Oh, made a big mess. So it just adds like a lot of loops, like panels. So if you're doing like sci-fi stuff and it has like indents and things like that, that's what this would be used for. We can do bevel. We can do elevation to push it inwards, and you can see you get a different effect. So if I put the elevation -100 and I do panel loops, okay, and if I do panel loops at 100. You get a different, you basically get like a different thing going on. Regroup your loops. We'll cover panel loops in another video though, because I have not used it in a while. Then you can change the bevel of the loop. How do you want this to look? It'll change like the silhouette of it. We can delete loops too. Clicking this button, change the angle of it, and all that fun stuff. Let's move on to crease. Since I failed miserably at edge loops, I feel like a failure now. But it's like one of those things. If you haven't used it in a while, there's so many features in ZBrush. It's very easy to kind of either forget how to use it or whatever the case is. Creasing an edge makes an edge like hard. What is there? There's a mask on here? Okay. Oops. Alright, so if I want to add a crease to this edge, I can click crease. And what it does is it creases everything. It doesn't just crease. It creases here and it creases here. So it creases any edges basically. So this would be like a hard. This will be a hard surface. See, when I crease it now, it keeps that hard edge. It keeps it here, keeps it here, keeps it here, keeps it here, keeps it here. So that's what crease does. You can also crease by the polygroup border. You can crease everything that's on the screen too if you wanted to. We want to give everything edge, a double edge or whatever, to crease it. Oops. I unsoloed out. Go back to solo. Crease all. Now everything has like a double edge. You can see like it's really highlighted in black here. And then if we do Control D on that, it's going to keep this shape because there's creases on everything. See, right now the crease is off. So that's what a crease does. You can also uncrease areas. You can set the tolerance for the creases. I think that's how far the crease is from everything. Yeah, but there's a tolerance slider, like, you know, what should be creased, like how close does something need to be creased. I think this is increasing because let's see, crease. Okay, so that's crease by polygroups. Then you have bevel. You can bevel creased edges. See, it just added a bevel there because there was a crease, so add a bevel again. It'll kind of just keep doing it. It's all it's doing really is change color. If I just crease everything and then add a bevel, it adds a bevel to every single thing. So then if I subdivide it, like everything has a bevel on it. This would probably work better, like, you know, with a better shape, but you get it, hopefully. Proportional bevel width. There's a lot of like crazy settings in here. When pressed, the prop width button will maintain. Let me also explain something too, like, you know, with all this crease stuff and all this stuff, like, you can do a lot of this with that Zmodeler thing now because this was before Zmodeler. So most time we just use Zmodeler for the most part, but there's a resolution of the bevel. You know, how much resolution do you want it to have? How much geometry do you want it to have? That's what that button would do. You see how it's adding more there? See how it adds more geometry when I slide this up and down? That's what that's doing. It's just adding more resolution. You could change your bevel width if it's high or smaller. So the width of the bevel. Right. So why would you want a bevel in the middle of something like this? You know, I think that's a question that, you know, be a good question, right, to ask. Well, let's say if you want to inset this whole line, that would be a reason that you might want a bevel there. Like if you wanted to, I don't know if this is going to work for me. But yeah, if you wanted to, you know, bevel in that whole line, that could be a reason. So if I use, for example, I think if I use move topologically brush, maybe it'll pull it out. Probably not. No, it's going to pull everything. But basically, if you wanted to push this inwards, if you want to just push this edge inwards, I mean, that might be a reason you would do that. Honestly, actually, though, if I use like the Zmodeler, because I'm used to the Zmodeler, if I use the Zmodeler and I highlight this and I just push this, actually QMesh is going to change the color. Let's do Extrude. I'm going to hold this, I'm going to hit Extrude, and I'll say all polygons. Oops, not all polygons, but we want a polygroup. I think it's polygroup all. Yeah, there we go. So what it's doing is it's taking the colors, whatever is the same color, and now I can extrude that inwards and outwards. So that's what that does. That allows you to make that selection. So I want to pull this in, if I want to push this inwards and get like a little bit of a sci-fi kind of cut in something going on. That's one way to do it. You can hit the top with that too. Oops, it's selecting like everything in that poly group. Whatever's the same color, it's going to do it. Here's a bigger one so you can see it in practice. Okay. Like I said, I usually use the Zmodeler tool. Sorry. You see that line it made? Oops. And if we do Control, now if we do like a Control D, it keeps that edge there. It keeps that line, and it's nice and neat. You know, before you kind of would draw, we kind of would draw it out ourselves or whatever, and it wouldn't look as nice. Or I had to take it into a different 3D program to get something like that. So yeah, so that's pretty much everything with creasing. And you saw a little bit of the Zmodeler. So, and I didn't even teach that one yet, but let's move along. We're going to go to something called Shadow Box. Before we do, let's get rid of this. All right, let's just delete this because that was just like a practice thing. The eyeballs. Oh, also, let's just change the color of this guy's eyeballs because he's not going to have green eyeballs. Let's make it something like a reflective surface, right? So let's try this reflect red and see if we can change it. I think the color is baked into the material here. So you can see when we try to change the color, it doesn't change. And that's because actually in this red, it's baked in. The color is actually baked in there. So that might not be the best one to use. Let's try a gel shader because that could give us a cool effect. And I don't know, maybe we'll give him red eyes. Let's give him red eyes anyway. Who cares? Red eyes you get. Alright, so he's going to get red eyes anyway. Because why not? So now we kind of have some separation here. I'm going to go to mRGB, which will apply to material and the color. We're going to click Fill Object. And just remember that Fill Object can be found under the Color menu right here. Okay. So now we have two different materials in there. We have the matte cap gray with a green on it, and we have this gel shader A with this red color on it. You can kind of zoom in, and we could take a render. If we just click BPR, we can get a quick render of how this would look. Okay, cool. So let's just save what we have so far, which we didn't make much changes, but I always save in iterations all the time. And then I'll usually delete like my last 100. I only keep like the last 3 usually, unless it's something. I'll save different files if I like before posing, after posing a model, before doing something really drastic. I'll make a decimated version and save it. All sorts of stuff, but I'm not gonna bog your mind down with that right now. We're going to do something called Shadow Box. And Shadow Box can be a great way to get complex shapes fast. Now, Shadow Box is hit and miss. It can crash ZBrush, unfortunately, sometimes. But I would say in order to use Shadow Box, you need something. You need to create a mesh to use it on. Okay. So I want to just, oh man, sorry about that. I want to use it on a spear here. And now I'll select the spear. I'm going to go in solo mode so you can see that. Let me change this material. Yeah, I get. We'll just do that. Yeah, we'll use this for now. It's fine. What shadow box does is you can create using mask. You can create something cool. Let's just do that. Let's just turn it on, and I'll show you. Okay. So let's just click shadow box. You're going to see that we get a plane on all sides, left, right, top, bottom. And what's happening is that it's showing as a circle thing or whatever. Let me see if it works. Like I said, sometimes this thing does not want to work for me. Let's make our brush bigger. But typically what happens is when you do this, it'll make like the geometry. I think because we have solo on, maybe, is the reason I'm not seeing it. Let me just double check that theory. And I'm going to turn off the dragon for now. Just by clicking the layer here. Oh, so we are getting something. We can't do shadow box in solo mode. All right. So if your shadow box isn't showing you your mesh that you're making, you might be in solo mode. So make sure you're not in solo mode when you're using this. But basically the way it works is when you draw with a mask, you want to have perspective off, by the way. When you draw with a mask, a shape, it'll create that shape for you. It'll make any shadow or mask into a shape. I'm going to hold control and click here. Okay, if I do hold control and then I press alt and drag, oops, I don't know if it's going to work. Probably not. Let's see, control. You can cut into the mesh. See that? Control, alt, and drag. Cuts into the mesh. Holding control and drag adds to the shape. So if let me see if I can. If I do control alt, hold space bar, and I drag this here, let go, I can put a hole there. See that? If I want to change the shape of this, oops. You know, if I want to change the shape of this, I can just hold control and drag. I can make it smaller. If I go here, oops, I just cut into that. Hold control and alt to cut in. So you can start to get something pretty complex pretty fast. So I'll hold control and alt. I'll cut in there. I'll hold control and alt. I'll cut in here. Yeah, so this could be a good way to get a complex shape pretty fast. Oops. Hold control. Oops. There you go. So that's pretty much how this works. Hold control, drag. And there you go. You have a shape. When you're happy with the shape that you have, you would turn shadow box off. And then you get that shape. Let's see here. And that's pretty much how shadow box works. It can come pretty handy. It's good for stuff, I don't know, like recreating parts for guns or something. But we actually we have the other thing now too, though. We have the Zmodeler now, so we can model things out. But if you just want to create like a fast shape, you could use this to do so. It could help you on certain things that would take too long doing it the other way. And you could look at the geometry. You can see the geometry is not the best that it gives you. So, you know, you might have to fix that. But yeah, and you can control how much resolution you're going to get as well with this. You get a pretty high res mesh, you know, using this method. You'll probably have to do some cleanup on this afterwards. You can add a polish to it as well. And the polish will kind of help it out too. Let me see if I can polish it up and make it look a little better. You can see when I raise the polish, I don't know if it's going to show. Hold on. Let's just undo it and do a new one. A quick version. Oops. I don't think I can do it on this side. They're probably on the other side. Make sure to hold Control and Alt. I wasn't holding that. Control and Alt. That's why I wasn't doing it. All right, so Control and Alt, drag out, hold Spacebar. Okay, we got two different shapes in here. All right, so let's just say this is what we want. If you mess with the polish, you can choose a level. You can't see it in preview though. That's the only problem. But let's just put it at 100, and then we'll hit Shadow Box. I'm not even sure if it's going to really show any change on that, but it'll basically kind of retain the shape. One press polish button implements the clay polish settings every time a Dynamesh is established. Oh, okay. So if we were to Dynamesh this now, I think that it'll add a clay polish to it. There's a polish in here though, so don't even worry about that. If you do auto clay polish and then you do it, you get a nicer shape. See that? When you do the clay polish, you see how I got like a harder line there without really doing anything? All right. So shadow box, that's shadow box. Clay polish. You can manually do it with the clay polish settings too. Like I can just keep clicking clay polish and it'll just keep kind of fine tuning things for me here. So I can get sharper edges, and then, you know, if I maximum curvature, you know, how much curvature do you want on the polish? The miniature curvature. Let's put that down to 0. How sharp do you want it? It's like super sharp. So you can tweak these settings here. Surface. And there's an edge. All right, so this one kind of looks good. So this might be a way to get a cool shape pretty fast, you know. What would you use it for? I don't know, but, you know, at least not this shape. Dynamesh. Dynamesh we kind of touched on a little bit. I had the polish turned on. I'm going to take the polish off. I'm going to turn Dynamesh on. And I want you to pay attention at what happens with the geometry here. You can see how the geometry is right now. If I hit Control and I drag, I'm going to get new geometry. See that? See how it's changing? So Dynamesh isn't the cleanest version of doing things. I just raised the resolution, by the way. It doesn't give you the cleanest, but it's good when you're kind of in the process of, you know, pulling things out and they get stretched, and then you Dynamesh it and you make it look a lot better. So let's just really pull something out here. The thing with Dynamesh is that it's Dynameshing like the whole thing now. So if I pull this out like extreme, right? See how it's getting all messed up? If I Dynamesh that, it's going to fix that area. It's going to do it. It's going to do the best job it can to fix that area, but it'll also kind of Dynamesh everything else as well. I don't think you can mask it. Let me see something. So let's just double check something. Let's just try if we mask the area off and then we Dynamesh, does it affect everything? Dynamesh. It's not going to Dynamesh at all when the mask is on. Okay. So it has to Dynamesh everything. See that? And it looks like bad geometry, but here it doesn't look so bad, right? So if you're kind of like in the process of trying to figure out what you want to create still, let's just say you're sketching. Think of this as if you were sketching in ZBrush. Like, I'm not sure what I'm making, but, you know, let's just, I'm going to turn on symmetry here. Local symmetry. Why is this off center? My ZBrush is out of whack today. There we go. And if we really just start pulling things out here, like I'm creating something, right? Let's just say like, oh man, I want to turn this into like a creature now, you know? Yeah, let's make it a creature. Well, that's when, you know, Dynamesh will kind of help you out, you know? And if you Dynamesh that, what it's going to do is it's going to do the best job to add more geometry there. And then afterwards, what you can do is you can go back over it and kind of smooth it out. And it won't be too bad. You will notice too, though, that you'll get these issues sometimes when you Dynamesh. You'll get holes in your mesh. To fix that, the best way is just to hold, you know, press B, press I, go to in flat. I'm sorry, it's killing me that I can't use my shortcut to make my brush big and smaller. Just kind of go like that to it with the in flat, and then do it again. And then you could smooth it out, and now that hole's gone for you. If things are too small when you Dynamesh, it kind of makes that too. So you might want to hit that as well. And then smooth it out. Dynamesh, smooth it out. Dynamesh, smooth it out. That's pretty much the how I use Dynamesh for the most part. Dynamesh, smooth it out. You know, let's just say, you know, you want to just bulk this guy up. Whatever, you know, whatever it is, just let's just go crazy on it. You could see all the stretching going on though, right? You see that stretching there? You hold control, you press that, smooth it out, you get nice cleaner geometry, because you don't want that, you know, you don't want it to look like that with the stretching. Let's see that hole? Clean it up. Clean it up with the in flat brush. Now, you know, since you did those changes, and you know, you have something to work on. So if you were to kind of start you know, adding clay and building things up, you know what I mean? You're good to go. You know, you're good to go now for the most part. You smooth it out. So that's kind of the power of Dynamesh. But the only downfall of Dynamesh is that it adds to your the whole model gets Dynameshed. You know, but there's going to be situations where you don't want your whole model to get Dynameshed. You only want certain areas to be Dynameshed, you know, because that's the area that's stretched. And you like the way everything else was going on, you know, in a different area or whatever the case is. So, I mean, I just wanted to point that out for the Dynamesh. But you can see you could create something pretty fast with Dynamesh. Once you have a clean mesh to sculpt with, you know, you can pretty much create something pretty fast with Dynamesh once you get that clean mesh going on. All right, and you can control how the Dynamesh is behaving as well. Also, let me see, if you multi-groups Dynamesh, when pressed, the group button will split. any multiple polygroup Dynamesh into separate pieces. Okay. If you have multiple polygroups and you have this set, it's going to split this into separate pieces. I think it splits it on the layer, but or maybe not. You know, I don't even know what it does. I don't use it, to be honest, but I'll have to figure that one out. The blur something I use. If I put the blur to 100% and I smooth this out, oops, my resolution's really high. Sorry. Take off the groups, matter of fact, and then smooth. We're actually not even seeing any change. Something I did to it. It's alright though. That's why we have the history palette. Let's just go back. This is why having, you know, history is a good thing too. So if you make a mistake, you can kind of redeem yourself. Oops. Let me just go back before I even Dynamesh this thing here. This mesh is not behaving properly. Let's get rid of it and just do a different one. All right, if I was to Dynamesh this, first make sure your Dynamesh is on. Let's turn the blur to 100% and Dynamesh. Okay, let's undo that and let's turn the. Oops, I don't think it turned the blur on, did it? All right, so the blur's on. Now the blur too. Basically, you know, you get different results depending on how you're doing this. It controls how much smoothing it will receive when the project button is enabled. A low value. Oh, okay. You have to turn on project and then do it. And it determines how much smoothing that it's going to receive, it's saying. So if we take it off, let's put it down to 2. I usually don't mess with it too much. It's like another thing I don't mess with. Polish, you can do. So when if polish is active and you do this, then it'll add some extra polish and stuff. But I'll mess with. The only thing I really mess with Dynamesh really is the resolutions, the resolution and the Dynamesh. Sub projection I don't mess with. There's an add, subtract, and delete for Dynamesh, and it allows you to cut into the model. I did one of my older models. I did a Gundam robot using that method. I honestly, I used it. I want to say like a year and a half ago. I haven't really used it yet. If I was to do another robot in ZBrush, it would be using the Zmodeler though, because it's way faster. So if I do a new Gundam, I'm definitely going to do it using that. But basically, it allows you to cut into shapes. So you can see there's different options here. Like there's a add, subtract, and multiply option. So if I want this to subtract from this, I think they both have to be a Dynamesh sub. I might have to look this up. Let's just see if I do sub. If I do subtract. Dynamesh has to be turned on as well. Will this be the subtraction piece? The piece that you subtract from, and this will be a piece to add, and then do Dynamesh. There's another step that I'm missing here. So I do want to show you guys this because it's pretty cool. We have this other feature too in Zbrush called Make Boolean. But let me just see if I can just find, a quick example of this. I want to make sure. So, let's just see if I can find a quick example of this to see what's going on here to really hit things home. 1 second. Okay. Dynamesh subtract. And Google's your friend too, guys. In order to find out how to, well, okay, here's a quick tutorial. Let's take a look at this. I have not done this in a while. I'm not watching the video. Let's see. Let's see if Pixelogix has it. Here we go. Merging tools with subdivision. Well, I wanted to do an extraction. We could probably take this step by step because there's one step that I'm missing because it has to turn white in order for this to work. Oh, the merge down. I think that's what I was missing. It has to merge down. Select Dynamesh subtool, the spirit, and click on the merge down button. Hold Control, click and drag. I didn't merge down my subtools, these two, so I think I got to click merge down. I made this one the one that we're subtracting from. Let's just see if that'll work. So there's a merge. We're going to do merge down. And then we're going to do this. I think it took it away. I don't know. Let's see. No, that's not the way it works. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. I just did a subtract. Did it subtract the piece from the other piece though? It cut into it, but it's not. I don't think it works like that, to be honest. Let's do this. Let's follow the instructions on Pixelogix site on their help thing because it's really cool. I wanted to show you guys how it works. Hold on. All right, so I'm going to make a spear and then I'm going to append a square. All right, I have two shapes. I'm going to turn my subdivision up on this. Maybe turn it up on this. I'm going to delete lower. I don't even think this really matters, this part, but I'm just going to try because I need to figure this out. Then we're going to move the square a little off. Yeah, okay. All right, let's take a look at these instructions, see if we can make sense out of this here. Okay, so it's a step one is, let's see, the currently subtool merge can also be assigned. Okay, make sure that the Dynamesh subtool is above the subtool you want to merge with. Well, we did a merge already, but we want to do a subtraction. The subtool that is immediately below your selected mesh subtool must have difference icon selected. This is the second icon. So honestly, I think why I'm not subtracting is because I was choosing the wrong one. And I don't know if it can hover over it. It can't, no. So the cutout is not this one, then the cutout must be this one. This must be the cutout one. So this is a merge together. And this is the cutout. Let's see. The subtool is immediately below difference. Now select the second subtool. And in the tool, polygroup subpalette, click the group as Dynamesh sub. Oh, yeah. So that's the part I'm missing, is this part here. I was missing two things, the merge that you have to do and the group as Dynamesh. So we're going to select the next subtool and we're going to go in Tool, Polygroup Subpalette and click Group as Dynamesh. So I have this selected here. Now I have to select this object. And I need to go into, I don't know why they had it. I don't know why they put it where they put it at. It should be in here, but they put it in polygroups. So in polygroups, there's an option right here called Group as Dynamesh Sub right here. See that? You got to click that Group as Dynamesh Sub. Remember I told you it's supposed to turn white? Now it's turning white. All right, so now we're cooking here. Now I think you just merge down and just do a Dynamesh, and then it should work. So let's just try that. Merge down. And we merge these together and hold Control and click. Make sure Dynamesh is on too. So what this did was this merged these together as one object. So that's how you merge together as one object. So let's undo that, right? I'm going to go back, Control Z, Control Z. See if I can get that object back. But oh, it's an undoable operation. That's right. We lost that because we did it. So let's just append another. It's okay. Let's just append another cube. And we will move it over again. And we'll make it smaller again. This was the old way of doing it, by the way. There's a newer way called the Boolean, make Boolean Mesh, which is a lot easier and it's non-destructive. So I think we need to pick this icon here, which is to cut into the other one. Go into Polygroup and then make sure your Polygroup's on so you can see what you're doing. And then for this one, we have to choose the make Dynamesh again. Group as a Dynamesh sub. So now I choose Group as Dynamesh sub. It turns white. When it turns white, that indicates that you did it properly. Oh, also make sure you do it on the right thing. Because if you don't, make sure you select this one, the one you want to do it cut into, I think it is. So we'll do Group as Dynamesh sub. Now we're going to merge down. These are both merged together, and we're going to hold Control and turn Dynamesh on. If Dynamesh is on, when you hold Control and you drag it, it'll work. But if it's not going to do anything. So okay, and actually, I think I need to click Subtract. I don't. Sorry, this thing is driving me crazy. So confused about that. I'll look into it. I'll figure it out. I got to play with it again. It's been a while. But again, we don't use this method anymore. That's why I haven't used it in a while. I think. Wait, what one turns? This one turns white. I'm looking at the example, trying to make sense out of things here. All right, I think I know how to do it now. I'm gonna try one more time. If not, we're just gonna move on, and I will figure it out next time, guys. Sorry. The worst teacher ever. Learn by doing, though, right? Okay. So this one we want to set to normal. This normal, right? This one we want to cut into, so we're going to make this the cut. This is going to be our cutter. Okay? So this is the cutter. It's underneath this one. Then we're going to go to group as Dynamesh sub to make it white. Now, we're going to click the circle and we're going to choose merge down. Now we're going to hold control and we're going to Dynamesh it. Of course, no. Hold on. And then turn Dynamesh on. No clue. Okay, let's just move on. I seem to only be able to merge them together, but I want to do a subtraction, but I just can't figure it out with that. All right. Create shell, creates a Dynamesh shell. So let's try that. Let's try to create Dynamesh shell. Create shell. Creating a shell requires a submesh insert, which then be used as the opening for a shell. You need another mesh in order to do it. I'm not sure. I never really used that one. Testimate. Testimate. Let me show you what Testimate does. It changes your mesh. I think I can Testimate an area. If I pull this out, let me just see if this will work. If I pull this out and I mask this, and I click Testimate, yep, okay. See that? If I mask an area off and then I click Testimate, it's going to try to fix that geometry in that area. And then you could kind of smooth it out. Kind of horrible geometry though. Oh, you can change the polygon size too. Oops. You can also close out menus. All right, Testimate, make bigger. This Testimates the whole thing. See that? If I make it really big, you see what it's making it like triangles basically. You can make it dense. And there's Decimate. So when the Testimate button is enabled, it will apply tessellation to the selected subtool. When you use Sculptris Pro, you can do the testimation. It's doing testimation to it already. When you use Sculptris Pro, I just use Dynamesh by the way to fix that mesh up. So that's that. That's Testimate. Kind of like an advanced term, but yeah. Zremesher. Okay, so Zremesher is pretty awesome because it can get you pretty decent geometry without doing much. Okay. And what I mean by that is if I click Zremesher, it's going to run an algorithm on this mesh, and it's going to try to clean it up. It's going to, right now it's set to my target poly count is 5,000. So it's going to use 5,000 polys, and it's going to do its best to retain the shape, but also give me cleaner geometry. Very even geometry for the most part. For any reason, if there's areas where it's not giving you good geometry, you can go to Brush, and you can use this Zremesher Guides. So press B, press Z, Zremesher Guides, and you can draw a guide. Oops, I want to draw. You can basically draw a guide around areas you want to keep. So let me just show you. I just make like a little guide right here, and then I'll Zremesh it. And what it'll do is it'll clean that area up. See how it kind of cleaned that area up? This area is kind of more cleaner too. Oops, I don't even know how I got in there. So let me just try this. Let's make this smaller. And I think you have to close. You have to close the loop in order for it to work. Yeah. And then we'll Zremesh. See what it's doing? It's trying to keep that shape that I just put in there. So this is a way to get clean geometry. And if there's any areas that are giving you issues, you can basically use this Zremesher guide to kind of fix those areas. So let's see if I can get. Zremesher is like an auto retopology method, which gives you clean mesh, because usually you would have to do this by hand, or you have to use a program like TopoGun, which will get you there pretty fast, or you can just do it poly by poly, which is kind of crazy. But honestly, the name of the game is whatever's fast. So why would you use this method? If you're doing a game and you have a required poly count on your character of 5,000, then you could use this to get there. Its target is 5,000. So I'm going to Zremesh this, and it'll maintain that. But it's going to get you under 5,000 basically. So right now I'm at 4,728. And if they're like, oh, the budget is, let's just say the budget is 1,000. You can only use 1,000 polys to make this shape for the game engine. So 1,000. Okay. Oops, did I put 100? I did. 1,000. Enter. I don't know. I think it just put 100 anyway. Okay, well this is Zremesher with 100 polys. Oh no, it did put 1,000. Okay. Did it? No way. Alright. Going crazy today, guys. Alright, let's just try 1,200. Zremesh. So you can keep kind of Zremeshing this all day, basically, until you get something that you want. Or you can do it manually. Or you can do this as a starting point and then manually fix it in another program if you're not getting everything exactly the way you want it. Okay, that's a little better. So, you could see how nice and even all these squares are, though. Very nice geometry. This kind of geometry is the kind of geometry that you want to sculpt on. Because if I subdivide this, it's going to subdivide like very nicely. See that? Super clean. And then when you sculpt on it, it's very, it's easier. It won't fight against you when you sculpt on it. Let me go a little higher. What is this clay buildup? Hold on, let me take the alpha. See, it's pretty clean. Sometimes when you have issues with the mesh, you see how that kind of messed up. Well, that didn't even mess up, but if you have issues with the mesh, it's hard to sculpt on. And so that's a clean mesh. And remember, Dynamesh, right? It doesn't give you a clean mesh, really. So when you sculpt on it, it's a little different. You got to smooth it out first and then sculpt on it. And like I said, if we Zremesh it instead, we'll get something a lot cleaner. And it's not wasted polygons too. Like I said, like Zremesher is the boss in this program. They did a very good job, with this adding this in ZBrush. The programming in it is fantastic, and it has 2 different versions. I think you got to hold Control and then click Zremesher in order to get the alternate version, or Alt and Zremesh. Yeah. One of them you hold, and you can get an alternate algorithm, like I think it's control, but don't quote me on it. Freeze group borders. If you click that, you could see freeze group borders. We topologize as polygroups. This is by the polygroups. It'll freeze the polygroups. Try to retain that freeze border. So yeah, target polygon. If you want half the polygon count of whatever you have, you hit Zremesh. You'll get half of that. If you want double what you have, you hit Zremesh. You'll get double that. If you want the same thing, just hit that. Okay. So that's that. Adaptive size, I don't usually mess with that. Create non-square polygons. Okay. Curve strength. Can bump that up. Try to see that in practice. When you bump the curve up, I believe it's trying to give you a nicer curve and it'll add more geometry. So I mean, it's a cleaner shape here. Use poly paint. That's when you paint on your objects, which we didn't really do yet, but pay attention to poly paint color when determining local polygon density as it creates the new topology. Basically, this tries to maintain your poly paint if you have to Z-remesh something. If you already painted this and you need to remesh it. And that's probably confusing, but yeah. All right, modified topology. Copy. Paste, append. I think this allows you to copy and paste the thing. Oh, you know what? It just pasted on itself. If I click copy and then I make a new layer like a square and then I click paste append, does it turn it into a square? No, it does not. Oh yeah, it pastes. It does. It pastes in the It pastes in this shape into this. See that? So paste append allows you to copy a piece of geometry and paste it into something. So right now we actually have double on this one. I don't use that, to be honest. I don't know. I always do. If I want to add the same thing to the same thing, I'll duplicate it and then I'll merge it down. You know, so if I want these to be in the same thing, I would just merge down or merge visible. No, not merge visible. Merge down. Click this. Make sure you're above, and then click merge down. Ah, it says something is hidden. What is hidden? There's nothing hidden. You might get errors sometimes with ZBrush, and just, you know, just the way it is sometimes. All right, I have no clue. Oh, there we go. It did it. Yay! So it just merged these two together finally for me. And now I could sculpt. Now that I merged these two objects together, I could sculpt on top of them together. So if you have like a seam here, you can use the clay brush. And the clay brush does a great job of filling in seams. The way I would use it is I would just kind of go over it like this a little bit. And then hit Subdivide, Control D. Oops. And then you could just build on top of that. Or you can you could Z-remesh these together and then you get a clean mesh. Well, I believe you could. Let's try it. Why not? Let's try it. What's the worst that can happen? Doesn't work, right? It's probably the worst thing that can happen. Alright, so we have these two, and we're going to try to Z-remesh them. Two different objects together. Let's see what happens. Can ZBrush do it? It didn't. It didn't do it. It didn't merge. It didn't do it together because they're different poly groups, I believe. No, it. What did it do? I have no clue. Yeah, it didn't do it. So in this case, you probably might have to Dynamesh this first. So turn on Dynamesh these together like this, right? And then now it did it. Now do a Zremesher. Now you can do a Zremesher on it. Dynamesh it, it'll smack it together. Then we'll Zremesh it, and we'll get a clean mesh from it. I ain't meshing around today. I'm telling you guys. There we go. Oh, nice seamless. Now we can go up. Oops. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Now I just subdivided this to 2 million polys for no reason, but yeah. These are all one thing now. If I smooth this out, matter of fact, I'm like super high up right now for no reason. But if I smooth this out now, you could see we can actually get rid of that line if we didn't want it. We could just smooth that out by holding shift and just going on our model. And we got one piece. So when you would keep things in parts, I would say, and then Dynamesh to merge them down afterwards. Maybe if you're doing like the muscles, you can do like, you know, all the different muscles separately in different separate pieces to make it easier to work with. Like the deltoid, the bicep. And then when you get the pose, everything, you could just merge them all down together as one thing like this. And then send it to the printer or put it in the game, whatever you want to do. So that's that. All right, let's go back to modify topology. So we did paste append. We could do paste replace. So a paste replace is going to replace an object with another object. So if I just take this ring, right? If I take this ring and I copy the ring, and then I go back up to this layer, and then I click paste replace, it's going to replace that whole object with the ring. Now we only have 2 rings. So that's what that does. All right, let's go next one here. Mirror and weld is an important one. Mirror and weld, let's say you were working on just half of your model, but you want it to be working on the whole model. So let me show you what that looks. Let's grab our dragon that we made. I guess it's dragon. Yeah, it's a dragon. Let's grab the dragon we made. I'm just duplicating it by clicking the duplicate button. So I have the dragon that we created, right? And let's just say we were sculpting on this, right? But we had symmetry turned off, like with the X button. Oops. Let's take off the RGB. You know, so I'm sculpting here, right? I'm making these changes. I really like what I'm getting, but oh man, I did not remember to turn on symmetry. So it looks like everything that I did here is not here. Okay. So I'll just make like a big change so you can really see what happens. It's not here, right? So why? So what is going on? How do I fix this? Do I cry? Do I not cry? There's a mirror and weld option. So if I do mirror and weld, you will have to get rid of your subdivisions. So you can do delete lower and then do mirror and weld. And what that did was that actually weld the opposite side of what we wanted. So I believe if you mask off the sides you want to maintain and then do a mirror and weld, it'll do it properly, but don't quote me on it. Maybe you got to do it like this. Let's see. Mirror and weld. No. Okay. All right, so we're mirroring in the x-axis. Let's try to mirror in the y-axis and then do a mirror and weld. So a mirror and weld can get you kind of like cool effects too. I basically just mirrored half of this and then put it at the bottom. If we do it in the Z, there's a little button that says XYZ here, guys. You probably can't see it on the stream, but we have a Z, and we're going to click mirror and weld. kind of put like the fins together. It's kind of weird, right? All right. So X is what we want, but we're not getting. Oops. X is what we want, but we're not getting the correct size. It's mirroring and welding, but it's welding the wrong size. It's the side rather, not size. So in order to fix that, I believe we have to go down to deformation, and we have to do. I think it's mirror to flip the object. Yeah. So I'm going to click mirror in the x-axis, and this will flip what I had on this side to this side. And this could come in handy too. Let's say an art director's like, man, I really like that thing under the eye, but can you put it on the other side? Yeah. I'll click mirror, and it'll go right on the other side. All right. So now if we do a mirror and weld, there we go. We got what we wanted on both sides. Okay, so that's kind of a two-part there. In the deformation, you got to click mirror if it's mirroring the wrong side to flip it on the other side, and then do the mirror and weld afterwards to follow it up. Okay, so that's how that works. Delete hidden. We're going to use this mesh as a guinea pig mesh. So how do we delete hidden? First, you got to hide something. So hold Control Shift, and we'll just take this and hold Alt. That's gone now. See that? Control Shift Alt and lasso around. Get rid of an area. It's hidden. It's not deleted though. But if I click delete hidden, I can't bring it back now. It's gone. I'm left with a big hole in our mesh. It is gone. So what do you do now? Well, you can do close holes, and ZBrush is going to do the best job it can to close that up for you. All right. Don't ask me why it's doing it a different color. But yeah, so that just closed that geometry up for you, which is kind of like, it'll make it, it won't be the cleanest thing in the world if we look at what it did. See the geometry it gave us? It's not very clean. But you know, maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's what you need. So yeah, that's how you close your holes. Insert mesh. Well, you can insert a mesh just by clicking insert mesh and just click like a spear. Now you got a spear, insert it in your same mesh on the same layer together. So that spear is in there. And if I want to select it, I can do Control Shift click. I can do Control Shift click. I can press Control to mask this off. Press Control Shift click on this screen to bring everything back, and then press Control and click on the screen to unmask. Isn't that kind of crazy? And now I can actually just select this alone. I don't know what happened to it. That was so weird. It like disappeared. What happened? That was weird. Not even sure what happened with that. That was super weird. It like just disappeared. Oh, maybe I must have clicked in the timeline here. I must have clicked up here on accident. You can click things pretty easily in this program, you know, messing around. So just be careful of that. Alright, so now that's both on the same layer. If I want to get rid of this, I'll just select this and I'll do a delete hidden. in the modify topology. No, now we just have that. We just have our dragon that's missing a little bit of his skin here. What is going on? Why is this so dark? There we go. There's a mask on it. That's why it was dark. Weld identical points. Well, when the weld points is pressed, all unmerged vertex points of the selected subtool will be merged. When the weld point is pressed, all unmerged vertex points of the selected subtool. Okay. If you have anything, this has to do with geometry, guys, so I think it might work on this. Let's see. Probably going to crash. I shouldn't jinx myself like that. This is a pretty complex mesh, so I don't even know what it did, to be honest with you. I don't use this, though. But yeah, it'll try to calculate things in weld points if something's not right, you know, and then you control the distance of the weld. We already did close holes. Create mesh from brush. That one I don't use. When the mesh from brush is pressed, the selected insert mesh brush will be converted into a subtool. Oh, yeah. So if you choose like an insert mesh is like subtools basically. So if I wanted to, I could drag like an ear on this. Right, and then we have that ear. And if I want to, now you see I have the option. I can create a mesh from the brush. So I can click create mesh from that brush. And it'll create the mesh from the brush and it'll get rid of everything else. Basically. Except this primitive. I don't know why I kept this primitive. Am I in solo? No, I'm not in solo. Oh yeah, it only kept the ear. I'm right. Okay. Yeah, so that's what it does. It basically gets rid of whatever you had before. So if I was to drag out like a head on this ear, right? And then I click mesh from brush, now the head is the only mesh. Because it's just taking that and doing what it do. Doing what it do. Grid divide. I don't know. The grid divide button will apply equal polygon divisions. The GD segment will set the number of divisions being completed on each polygon. I think this tries to make everything even on your mesh. So let's try it. Grid divide. Yep. Tries to divide everything evenly. Let's take the segments down to 2 and grid divide that. Oh, whoa, it makes it a little bigger. So we did 56. Oh no, you can't do that. It's too much geometry. You must be crazy. Oh man, that looks ugly. What did I do? Oh, it made it like a smaller version or whatever. Why can't I smooth this out? It's so weird. Or is it smoothing and I just don't know? Oh, it's too thick. Okay. Micro mesh. Select micro mesh per polygon replacement. Micro mesh is only visible in BPR. Turn on draw micro mesh in the render option. So micro meshes some of these things they only show if you render out a scene. Like you're not going to see it otherwise. So if we turn on micro mesh and then we do there's an option in here somewhere where we can have micro mesh turned on. Shadow filters, and it's not in filters. There it is, draw micro mesh. So we click draw micro mesh. And it's probably going to crash. I think my mesh is too crazy too. But is it draw micro mesh is the real question. We're probably going to crash here. Yeah. Computer's breathing heavy, not good. Oh, it went through. Oh my goodness. It's a miracle. Let's Zremesh this. Let's just Zremesh this down a little bit. So it's not so crazy, you know, in Polygon. You can see when things are happening in ZBrush, it tells you up here Zremesh is in progress. And you can actually press the escape key if you pressed it on accident. You want to escape, which might sometime work for you. You know, it might not. But I encourage you to try it out. See what happens. That's the best way to learn, right? Trying things out. This Zremesh is taking a really long time, but it looks like it's going through. Come on, Zremesh. Oh, cool. Whoa. What happened here? Oh my goodness. Well, I'll be damned. I don't know. Oh, I think it's doing a micro mesh. I think what we're seeing is the results of a micro mesh. Let's try to render out and see what happens. A micro mesh adds a mesh on the vertex points of an object. You see that? See what happened there? I'll do it one more time so you can see it. So you get cool effects like this, like when you render things out. So what it's doing here is it's taking the shape of that circle thing, and that was the one that I chose when we did modified topology. We did micro mesh, and then I chose that circle. So it's taking that shape, it's making a micro mesh out of it on every vertex point, and it's using that to create the basic shape. So it's pretty cool. It can definitely come in handy. It's good for things like, I don't know, like chainmail and stuff like that. And so you get a pretty cool effect. And then I think you could probably just click micro mesh again and choose something different, like this cone here. And you could see right there it shows the cone. And then we press micro mesh. Press BPR to render it out. And bam, there you go. Now it's cones. This isn't manipulative. Like, you can't manipulate this shape. Like, if you want to keep this the way it looks, you have to do convert BPR to Geo. And now, check this out. I can actually, I actually have this crazy shape now. I could actually, go ahead in here with my move brush and move it around. It's pretty crazy. So I'm literally moving like all these different polys or all these different shapes at the same time. So that's what that convert BPR to Geo button does, by the way. I'm happy I was able to actually show it to you, though, in practice. All right, so that's micro mesh, and then we could spin edges. We can't do anything with this mesh now. It's not editable anymore. The micro mesh isn't editable anymore. We destroyed it, basically. Sorry, micro mesh. If we go back here, we're in the history. We're back to our micro mesh again. Back to when things were looking all right. This thing's revving my computer right now, so I'm just waiting for it. It happens when you're dealing with a lot of geometry in the scene and stuff like that, and your computer can start kind of chugging a little bit depending on what you're doing. If there's issues or something. All right. It crash here. Oh my goodness. We're gonna get. No, don't crash. We've gone so far. Okay, I don't know what happened. Did I get a crash? What did I get? Probably crash. That's why it's always good to save your work, guys, because ZBrush can crash if you're doing something and you don't know what you're doing in there. You can come up. You can make so much geometry and heartache for yourself, and then it'll just kind of crash on you. So you don't want to be that guy to do that. Oh, sorry, guys.
Ctrl, L, O, and G. Ctrl, L, O, and G.
1 second, guys. Let me just see.
Ctrl, L.
All right. Usually, when your ZBrush crash, you can go. There's a quick save, and it'll show you like a recovered thing or something. But we'll just reopen our file that we were working on. Drag back out Mr. Dino here. Hello, Mr. Dino. Welcome back. Okay. You can see I'm getting these other menus here because I must have set these as to load on startup all the time. So I'm getting our custom menu we made in our other lesson and something else, which I'll have to get rid of a little later. But all right, so we'll go back to geometry. I just want to see if there's anything in the geometry that I missed here. Modify topology. There's the micro mesh. Let's do the micro mesh on something smaller, a little bit more manageable, maybe. So let me just append a cube first, right? Let's do this. Let's append a ring actually, and let's do solo. All right. So now we're just looking at this ring here. I like to change my stuff sometimes. We're looking at this ring, and we want to add a micro mesh on it. So we're going to click micro mesh, and I want this. Yeah, I want this to be the micro mesh. We'll hit OK, and then we'll do a BPR render. Did it even work? I don't think it worked because by default it's turned off. You have to go and turn it on. See? Draw micro mesh has to be on. It's off by default. Rendered, draw micro mesh. There we go. We're back in action here. Alright, so there we go. Now we can render. And then if you want to change the way the edge is, I think you just click this spin edge if you want to spin it the other way. Whoa, that looks... What does it do? Huh. That looks kind of cool. So yeah, kind of spin the edge the other way. I think if you click it again, it'll just keep changing it. Yeah, it changes like the direction of the edge of that mesh thing. So that's cool. A line edge. Let's see what that does. So what I'm doing is I'm just clicking once and then just re-rendering with that BPR by hitting that BPR button. Merge triangles to quads. Don't think this would really work. Optimize points. It looks pretty cool. All right, so that's that. Unweld. Let's see what else we got here. Everything's kind of thrown in here too, which isn't really the best thing. Unweld order. Unweld group order will unweld all vertices where two or more polygons meet. Or polygroups. You can unweld polygroups. Let me see if I can show you that. Let's delete this. I think what that means is, I don't really use it, but I think if you do a cube, right? Good old-fashioned cube again. And we just take like part of this cube and mask it. And then do a Shift W. Is it Shift? No, it's Control W. We'll do Control W to get different polygroups here, right? And then we go back to the geometry. See, I have two different polygroups. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see. Unweld group border. If we do unweld group border, I think that, yep, what it does is it unwelds it. So now they're actually two different shapes. They're not connected anymore. See that? So that's what that does. That's what unweld does. So when you unweld something, you break apart. You break apart. Okay? Weld is to merge vertices together. Unweld is to break them apart. So this could come in handy. I think, let's see what happens if you close holes. Oh, so when you close holes, what it's doing is it's closing the hole here and here now. So that's another thing, okay? There's other ways, though, to do it. Like you could use the Zmodeler to make a cleaner close hole than that. Maybe we should test that theory. Should we test that theory? Why not? Hey, let's test that theory. You know what? We're going to test it. If it doesn't take too long. If it does, then we're going to scrap it. So if we select an edge, we want multiple edge loop. No, a single edge loop. And we want to close by a border, which is close. So I think if we click here, oh, it doesn't do a better job. It does the same crappy job. But why does it? What can we do instead to make it a cleaner job? We hold space. There's a bridge, there's a bevel. Huh. Well, let's try to do an inset. Maybe that might work for us. Let's do an inset on that. It's really hard to select these things sometimes. I don't think inset can work on this. No, it's not. That's not going to work for us. It's really hard to grab that edge sometimes. Let me go back over this edge. So we only have the option of closing. There's a concave hole and convex hole. Okay. Okay, so this changed the way that it did things. See that? It was kind of ugly though. So that's a spline, circle, arcs, tight, round corners, straight line maybe? Let's see if that... No. I will have to figure it out because I'm not sure. But if things become too difficult and for some reason you can't do it in ZBrush, I do recommend you do it in another 3D program. I mean, instead of spending hours, if it can't be done, that is. But I think it can be done, you know. But if it can't, use 3ds Max or use Maya or use Blender or whatever you're using instead. Make those shapes and then bring it back into ZBrush if it's misbehaving for you. We have micro mesh. We have merge tries. Equalize surface area. I believe. Let's do a close hole first. So we just closed the hole. Oops, they weren't visible. Now we can close holes. So we'll close holes. Equalize surface area. Let's click it and see what happens. Equalize edge length. Let's equalize surface area. Equalize surface area, I believe, usually tries to fix it. If an area has been stretched in its light geometry, you can equalize it out. So it kind of relaxes that area if you pull something out. Equalize edge length is if the edges are spaced too much, it'll try to equalize them out together. Position. The position of the object, I believe, actually does move the object. The object's position. Yep. So position slider will move the object in space, you know, wherever you want, with the X, Y, and Z coordinates just by using this slider. But the way we move things is we use this tool now, which is the Gizmo 3D. You could do everything from it. Move, scale, rotate, you know, whatever you want. Okay, so that's what that does. Size just changes the size of an object, which is the same thing as scale in the Gizmo 3D. The mesh integrity, if you have you can check the integrity of a mesh. It kind of does like a check on it. It would check the integrity of the mesh using ZBrush. This is ideal to track any issues that you may encounter. If you have an issue with your mesh, you can click this button. If you need to fix the mesh, you can just click Fix Mesh, and it'll do an algorithm. It'll try to fix everything for you. All right, so that's pretty much that. All right, guys. So when we come back, we'll start on the ray meshes, and we'll work on that, and we'll just continue to work our way down this menu here and try to get through these things. Some of these are a little bit more in depth than others. And again, I mean, after the beginner tutorial, we're going to do an actual project, and you can really see how how we can actually do things. So you'll see me sculpt an actual project from start to finish, and I'll explain every step of the way so you know what's going on. All right. Hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching part 4. I'll see you guys in part 5.